It's the weekend warm-up edition of Main Street Sports Today, presented by the Tennessee Orthopedic Alliance of Columbia. That's Wade Neely. I'm Maurice Patton. We are coming to you from our respective homes on this Friday afternoon and happy to be here for the next couple of hours discussing local, regional, and national sports topics. Wade, Happy New Year.
Happy New Year to you, and good to be with you. Good to be with everybody. Glad nobody burned the place down. Everything's good, and 2025 is off to a nice start so far.
It is off to a nice start. I thought about you as 2024 ended with your Michigan Wolverines ending the year the same way they started the year. I thought that was really kind of cool for y'all. Not so cool for our friends that wear crimson, but it bees that way sometimes.
Yeah, not bad, right? Little did we know when Michigan and Alabama met at the Rose Bowl last year that they would be reduced to the ReliaQuest Bowl less than a year later. But like you said, sometimes it be that way. And yeah, I'd rather win that game than lose it. And
well, once you're in it,
good way to end 24. Yeah. If you're stuck in the ReliaQuest Bowl, you might as well win it.
You might as well win it. Exactly. Yeah. A lot of college football still to be talked about, as there are those pointing to that game, among others, as signaling the death of the Southeastern Conference. You know,
pretty much dead, right? I mean,
yeah.
The joke is, there's not even an SEC team left. You got the Big 12, all that's left, basically, if you depending on what you. Depends on how you viewed Texas coming into the year. Now everybody's like, ooh, now all of a sudden we need you a little bit at this point. Trying to hold it down for us.
Well, I mean, whether you want to acknowledge it or not, the Southeastern Conference kind of greased the skids for Texas with that schedule that they got to start with. So, I mean, might as well embrace them. Heck, they benefited from their membership, I do believe. So, we'll see how that goes. But, yeah, there's plenty to talk about as far as college football goes still, with the final playoff game taking place yesterday. We're going to talk some basketball as well, though, because it's getting to be about that time. And, again, with the SEC all but out of the postseason, might be time to turn our attention in that direction. In the next segment, we'll be joined by Blake Lovell of Southeastern 16. The SEC gets its conference schedule underway starting tomorrow. And, there's a lot of good basketball that we're looking at right out of the gates. I mean, it's kind of tough to avoid with as many top 25 teams as the SEC has. And we've got some top 25 matchups that we will take a look at with Blake here in the next segment. In the next hour, we'll be joined by Ben Arthur of NFL on Fox as the Titans get ready to close out the season, regular season, and everything else against visiting Houston this weekend. So we'll check in with Ben and get his thoughts on what we can look for on Sunday in that noon finale there. Again, we'll also talk a little NBA. We'll talk some other NFL. Plenty of other NFL to talk about. A huge game Sunday night. Really looking forward to it. I mean, kudos to the National Football League for being able to get its best game in that final window Sunday night. And it's going to be a barn burner. Again, looking forward to that one. SEC women's basketball got started last night, and both of our local entrants continued their success with big wins last night and have big games coming up on the weekend. We'll talk a little bit more about that later on in the show as well. But yeah, plenty to get to. Going to be a great show. Looking forward to it. So, Wade, are you ready to kind of shake off some cobwebs and get to work?
Yeah, man, let's do it.
Okay. Let's get it going then with yesterday's results. This weekend schedule on the rundown.
This is the rundown.
Lock and load, boys and girls. The Friday rundown off and underway here on Main Street Sports today. But before we get into it, I want to remind you that our Friday rundown is always brought to you by Chip Walters of Exit Realty, Bob Lamb and Associates. The Blue Raider Voice also wants to be your trusted advisor in real estate. So give Chip a call. That number is 615-542-1915, or visit his website at choosechip.net. That's Chip Walters, proud to support youth sports across Middle Tennessee.
Girls high school basketball from last night. Lincoln County with a 56-42 win over Giles County. Summertown with an 80-12 win over Zion Christian. On the boys' side, it was Giles County 59, Lincoln County 43, and Summertown with a 94-60 win over Zion Christian. Women's basketball action from Thursday. It was Southeast Missouri State defeating Tennessee State 75-68. Eastern Kentucky with a 72-58 win over Austin Peay. Lipscomb defeated North Florida 76-53. Vanderbilt with a 108-82 win over Georgia. Middle Tennessee State at the Glass House defeated Florida International 69-38. Missouri State 57, Belmont 55 out in Springfield, Missouri. And Tennessee went on the road, knocked off Texas A&M 91-78 in men's action on Thursday. Blue Mountain with an 88-78 win over Cumberland. It was Austin Peay 97, North Florida 89. Lipscomb with a 70-65 win over Jacksonville. Middle Tennessee State on the road 73, Florida International 69, and Southeast Missouri State comes to the Gentry Center, picks up a 67-65 win over Tennessee State.
Bonus score for everybody last night, too. UT Southern haven't won a lot of games this year, but men's basketball with a 93-75 win versus a pretty good Bethel team last night. So a nice little early start for Coach Andy Sharp and that bunch there. Let's get into high school basketball. Let's get into our schedule. These are double headers. A 2 p.m. start time between Clay County, who was at East Robertson. Now we get into our traditional 6 o'clock window. Santa Fe will be at Battle Creek. Independence is heading to Cane Ridge. Murfreesboro Central Magnet at Cascade. Rockvale traveling to Centennial. Grace Christian Franklin visiting Columbia Academy. It'll be Zion Christian at Cornersville. Liberty Creek tackling the road and tackling Ezel Harding tonight at 6 p.m. Marshall County is at Franklin. John Overton traveling to Glencliff. It'll be Todd County Central Kentucky traveling to Joe Burns tonight at 6. Kirkwood is at Kenwood. That's a fun one to say there. Brentwood Academy is at Lead Academy at 6. CPA is at Lipscomb Academy this evening. Lewis County is on the road at Loretto. Westmoreland traveling to Macon County. Community visiting Mount Pleasant. Houston County is at Perry County. Innsworth is at Pope John Paul II. White House Heritage visiting Portland tonight. Gallatin is at Springfield. Columbia will travel to Summit tonight at 6 o'clock. Watertown is at Trousdale County. It'll be Stewart's Creek at Warren County. Montgomery Central visiting Waverly tonight. BGA is at Webb School. Mount Juliet is at Wilson Central. And Fayetteville will be on the road tonight taking on the Richland Raiders.
Girls only matches. This one should be done since it was supposed to start at 11:30, but Blackman and Green Hill squared off. At 4:30, you will have Lawson at St. Cecilia Academy in a girls only matchup. At 5:30, Livingston Academy's girls are at Beach. Also at 5:30, Father Ryan is at Harpeth Hall. And at 6, it's Franklin Road Academy and Middle Tennessee Christian. Okay. Boys basketball only. Tennessee Heat and Page were to have played at 10 this morning, so feel like that one's over as well. At 2 o'clock, so that's right now, Livingston Academy and Smyrna are playing somewhere. Butler College Prep out of Illinois takes on East Nashville at 2:30. At 4:40, Tellico Plains faces Smyrna. At 5:30, Whites Creek faces Good Pasture. 6 o'clock start, Station Camp is at Beach. And also at 6, Harriman is at Giles County. This is a big game for those two teams. And what, Shay Shannon? Is that the coach at Harriman?
Yeah, Coach Shannon, former Bobcat. He'll be back in. Second straight year they've made the trip down to take on his alma mater. It'll be fun. A lot of local dignitaries, if you will, in the crowd. I think expected to make the to see one of their own come to town. They beat Giles County by 4 last year. Bobcats looking for revenge.
Okay. Siegel is at Nolansville at 7:30. Father Ryan is at MBA. No time given for that one. Women's basketball at 6 o'clock today. It's a doubleheader. Fisk takes on Tougaloo College down at Talladega in Alabama. On the ice, the Preds are out at Vancouver. That's a 9 o'clock puck drop. You can see it on FanDuel Sports. Also at 9, Memphis is at Sacramento in the association. That one's on FanDuel as well.
Give me some double headers and give me some Saturday action. Here we go. We get underway tomorrow at 3 o'clock when Sycamore travels to Lawson. Kick it to 6 p.m. window now. Clarksville Academy is at Friendship Christian. It'll be Nashville Christian at Good Pasture. Ezell Harding is on the road at Mount Juliet Christian. Cannon County visiting Murfreesboro Central Magnet. And Creekwood will be at Upperman. Girls standalone games tomorrow. 3 o'clock start times for Marshall County out of Kentucky, who's playing Page. Kenwood will visit St. Cecilia Academy, and Valor Collegiate will be at the University School of Nashville. 6 o'clock start times on the ladies' side as Hillsboro is visiting Beach, and DCA is taking on Davidson Academy. Men's singular contest on Saturday. It'll be Smyrna at Ray County. That game gets underway at the classic start time of 11:20 a.m., we've been told. 2:20, you can catch Tellico Plains, who's taking on Smyrna. 3:30 start time between Jackson Christian, who's at Middle Tennessee Christian. 4 p.m., you can catch CPA versus East Nashville. 4:30 will be Loretto versus South Gibson. And coming up at 7 tomorrow night will be Kip Nashville, who is at Beach.
Women's basketball action on Saturday. It's a 12 noon tip-off for Blue Mountain at UT Southern. That opens a doubleheader with the men to follow. Also, doubleheader action. Trevecca is at Lee at 1 o'clock tomorrow. Women first, followed by the guys. And Little Rock comes to the Gentry Center for a 1 o'clock doubleheader. You can see it on ESPN Plus. Again, the women at 1, the men to follow. Women only. North Florida, it's at Austin P. That's a 2 o'clock tip. You can see it on ESPN Plus. Also at 2 o'clock, also on ESPN Plus. Eastern Kentucky is at Lipscomb. Belmont is at Southern Illinois. At 3 o'clock on ESPNU, Liberty is at the Glass House taking on the Lady Raiders. Men's basketball action tomorrow. We'll be talking more about this one with Blake Lovell in the next segment as Arkansas, the number 23 Razorbacks, coming to FCC at TBA, taking on the number 1 Tennessee Volunteers. Again, that's a 12 o'clock start. You can see it on ESPN at 1 on ESPN Plus. At ESPN Plus, it's Austin P at Jacksonville. 3:30 on ESPN2, Vanderbilt goes to Baton Rouge, taking on LSU at the PMAC. At 4 o'clock on ESPN Plus, it's Illinois Chicago at Belmont. At 5 on the CBS Sports Network, Middle Tennessee State goes to Liberty. On the ice, 9 o'clock tomorrow night, it's on FanDuel Sports. Nashville is at Calgary. And at 7:30 tomorrow, also a back-to-back, Memphis travels to Golden State, taking on the Warriors. Again, 7:30 tip. You can see it on FanDuel Sports. On Sunday, Oklahoma is at Texas. The 9th-ranked Sooners coming to the 15th-ranked Lady Vols. That's a 2 o'clock start. Also, Kentucky is at Vanderbilt. Kentucky ranked number 16. Both those are 2 o'clock starts, and I know they got to be on TV somewhere. Well, maybe not. No TV listed for either of them. That's bizarre. Noon on Sunday, Texans, Titans, Nissan Stadium. You can see it on CBS. It's the season finale for the Tennessee Titans. And we'll be talking more with Ben Arthur about that one later in the show. Ladies and gentlemen, that is your rundown. Your top story brought to you, as always, by the fine folks over at Piggly Wiggly in Neely's Mill in Columbia. Be sure and check out their delicious daily deli lunch options available from 11 a.m. until 6 p.m. Also, their hand-cut meats, and everything is cost plus 10% at the cash register. Piggly Wiggly, Neely's Mill, Columbia, bringing you our top story. we talked about this a couple of weeks ago, Wade, and it seems to be heating up. Jimmy Butler wants out of Miami.
Doesn't sound good, right?
No, that can't be good for the Heat, I wouldn't think. As this article on CBSSports.com says, Butler's been making some pretty thinly veiled comments of late about his desire to be traded, but now he's made it official. Apparently, he has indicated to the Heat he wants the team to trade him and that he is open to playing anywhere other than Miami. Anywhere is a pretty wide net, man.
Yeah, he ain't wanting to go to Washington.
I wouldn't think.
They ain't got Cooper Flag just yet. So, he needs to kind of choose his words a touch more carefully there.
Yeah. Be careful what you wish for. But it's interesting because just how tradable is Jimmy Butler?
And that's going to be the $1 million question, right? Is if you're a team, to me, it seems like if you're a team that's maybe on the cusp, there's one team that I'll mention here in a minute. If you're on the cusp, maybe this pushes you toward the finish line. He might be really, really valuable to you. If you're a team that's kind of in the middle of the pecking order, ironically, kind of like the Heat are, maybe there's some value. The question is, what is Miami willing to accept? They've done a remarkable job of kind of just turning their franchise over in these realms, the D Wade era, with the early title, and then the D Wade LeBron era. And then just magically they've kind of floated and remained relevant. Usually you don't have this many stars kind of coming through the doors and maintaining that sense of relevancy. But the Heat have done it. I did see a great tweet last night. It said, if heat culture is not enough, they talk about heat culture, and especially playing for Spo down there. And I mean, you're living in South Beach. If that is not enough to keep you wanting to stay there, then maybe you're just not destined to stay there long. And it seems like Jimmy Butler's kind of maybe trying to strong arm his way out the door.
And to that point though, Wade, if being in South Beach and playing for Spo and heat culture, if that's not enough to keep you happy, then are other teams looking at that and thinking, well, damn, if he don't want to be there, where does he want to be? And how do we keep him happy? And that kind of thing. I would think that that's got to be something that other teams have to be a little bit concerned with. But it's interesting to me, where he fits in, how he fits in, that kind of thing, somewhere other than Miami.
Yeah, and I mean, sometimes it just runs its course. Nothing like our boy Pony Boy said, nothing gold can stay, right? And I mean, eventually it kind of just it runs out. I mean, the Heat are sitting there in the middle of the standings. I know that the East is pretty much a 2-team race at this point, depending on how you value the Knicks. But I mean, they're right there in the middle of that kind of pecking order. But the team that's really got my curiosity in this whole mix is Houston. And the Rockets are right there on the precipice, very frisky. Feels like they're doing the right things, but I don't know that I trust them come crunch time just yet. But if you throw Jimmy Butler in the mix, that maybe alters the calculus a little bit for me. I think that takes them out of the frisky, really, really frisky range and maybe bumps them up to a borderline, Western Conference title contender at that point. And that's really all you can ask for Houston. So that's a team that I'm going to be intrigued by. They've been whispered pretty heavily in these conversations.
Okay, well, here's the question then. If Houston is a possibility, should Memphis be a possibility?
Sure doesn't feel like it to me. It'd be cool. Okay. Memphis is kind of, there was the Durant trade discussion a couple of years ago. Memphis is just, it seems like they're standing pat. And it feels like Houston, whether they admit it internally or not, it feels like they kind of realize they may be punching a little bit above their weight right now. And so the question becomes, do you cash in your chips right here in the middle? I don't know the asset situation for Houston. I know the Thunder got $1 billion draft picks, but it seems like they're pretty content with the situation they got going on too. So feels like Houston, maybe a team like Phoenix, or Dallas, kind of, in that frisky range. We certainly heard a ton about Golden State over the last couple of weeks. Feels like one of those, but I feel like Memphis, if they're going to make a move, their assets are kind of tied up and they're kind of strict right now. They can't really swing for the fences without giving up a sizable piece as well. They're kind of hamstrung in that regard.
Yes, you. Okay. All right. Well, that's what we know at this point. Jimmy Butler wants out. Miami may or may not be willing to acquiesce. We will keep an eye on it and see how that goes. Let's take a break here on Main Street Sports Today, presented by the Tennessee Orthopedic Alliance of Columbia. When we return, we will be joined by the Blake Lovell of Southeastern 16, talking a little SEC basketball as the opening weekend of conference play looms. Stay tuned when we come back.
Whether you're an athlete or a weekend warrior, when it comes to your performance, don't settle for anything less than excellence. We're proud to announce that Mid-Tennessee Bone and Joint Clinic is now Tennessee Orthopedic Alliance of Columbia, where we are redefining sports medicine and orthopedics. Tennessee Orthopedic Alliance's team of expert sports medicine physicians understands the unique demands of your body. TOA Columbia specializes in personalized orthopedic care, offering state-of-the-art treatments for everything from sports injuries to joint replacements. Learn more at toacolumbia.com.
Step into the Lionel retail store at Opry Mills, Nashville, and you'll be captivated by all the magic of the 123-year history of Lionel trains. Whether you're already a train enthusiast or just getting started, Lionel will energize your love for trains. NASCAR fan? Come check out your local Lionel station to learn all there is to know about model trains and die-cast NASCAR collectibles. Visit nashville.lionel.com or call 615-455-9399.
Custom Stone Handler supplies over 600 distributors and suppliers with quality stone products. Along with River Stone, we produce and distribute over 100 building, landscape, and other bulk products. Our goal is to provide quality products, service, and partnerships to ensure our customers' success. We firmly believe that the measure of any person or company is how they treat other people and customers. Give them a call at 931-490-4990 or visit CustomStonehandlers.com.
You're seeing the signs too, right?
What signs?
This holiday season, the largest lantern festival in the country returns to Nashville Zoo. Experience more than 1,000 all-new, handcrafted lanterns, towering creatures, magical worlds, and a North Pole village. At the center of it all, the Smashville Ice Rink. Welcome back to Zoolumination at Nashville Zoo. Bigger, brighter, and better than ever.
Hey, welcome back into the weekend warm-up edition of Main Street Sports Today, presented by the Tennessee Orthopedic Alliance of Columbia. I'm Maurice Patton. That is Wade Neely, and we are set to talk a little Southeastern Conference basketball with the man, the myth, the legend, the Blake Lovell of Southeastern 16. Blake, are you staying warm, man?
I am doing my best, guys. As I always say on the show, my recording setup's very interesting because I actually do it from a little makeshift spot in the garage, and so the heat is just... there's like a little tiny heater we have over here, but at the same time, I'm like, when it gets in the 30s, I'm thinking, okay, well, it's a little chilly down here. So,
yeah, you might need to do something, man, because I mean,
know.
basketball season is when you are going to be at your highest demand, and basketball season around here tends to be a little cold. So we gotta get Blake taken care of, man. Can't have you cold, but the action is certainly heating up. I don't know what anybody expected at the season's onset when we got into conference play, but you have got 5 of the top 10 teams in the country, according to the Associated Press, coming from this conference. You've got 2, 3, 5 more in the next 15. I mean, so 10 of your 16 teams are in the top 25.
Yeah.
I don't know what to say. I really don't.
I know. I look. I always say every year I'm the ultimate SEC basketball optimist that there is. But like, I knew the league would be good. I didn't think the league would be this good.
It's a basketball league now. Anybody watching football would tell you that it's a basketball league, right?
Yeah, it's interesting because I know there are a lot of people out there that like to, give all the criticism to SEC football, which is, somewhat been deserved maybe this time of year. But it's like, usually you're like, all right, that's it. But now you got to look to SEC basketball and say, well, hold on a second. I can't pick on SEC basketball anymore because when you look at the numbers, it is really just absurd. And I put some of the numbers on Twitter and all that, like the SEC 208 non-conference games, went 185 and 23. I mean, 28 quad one wins. They're the only conference that had a winning record in quad one games, so 28 and 19. They're 19 and 3 in quad two games. So like, those kind of games that can go either way, 19 and 3. 21 wins already against the AP top 25. That's already the most ever for any conference. And we still have half a season to go. 59 and 19 against the ACC, Big 10, Big 12, and Big East. It says it all to me right there. Like, just complete. 40 wins more than you had. Like, it's just not something we're used to seeing. And you can look at all the advanced metrics and all that. Like, what the SEC just did, teams are obviously going to start losing games because they're playing each other. But what the SEC just did in those 208 games was, numbers-wise, as good as we've ever seen a conference be, outside of maybe a couple here or there in the history of the sport. And that's not exaggerating. It's just the numbers tell the story. So,
and Blake, coming into this season, I'm curious, how do they keep that up, right?
Well, and that's the thing, and that's why, honestly, guys, I think this is going to be so fascinating because, now you're looking at it to where, like I mentioned, teams have to lose now. Like, somebody's going to win, somebody's going to lose, and so inevitably, you're going to have teams that fall off. And I know everyone keeps saying, well, hey, still going to get 14, 13 teams in. I'm like, that's not going to happen. Maybe right now, when you look at bracketology, you can project 13 or 14 teams as the ultimate best case scenario. But it's going to change because it always happens. And especially, I think, we have to pay attention to this in a season like this because the league has been so good. Some of these teams are not going to cut it. Like, they are going to fall back. The problem is, usually, we can identify exactly who those teams are going to be. This year, you may have a hunch at a couple here, a couple there, but I don't think you can go in and just say, that team right there has got no shot. And so, again, usually by this period, we have a couple of those teams. I don't think we do so far. Like, even South Carolina, who's 10 and 3, they beat Clemson on their home court. I think they're going to be tough to beat in Columbia. LSU's interesting to me. Vanderbilt's interesting to me. Like, all these teams like that, I think this is where, and think about this too, the SEC went 125 and 2 in home games in non-conference play. Now, I understand a lot of those games are games they're supposed to win, but still, that's still just an absurd number. Like, you would think somebody somewhere is going to slip up more than 2 times in that many games. It just didn't happen. So I think a lot of these teams will wind up holding serve at home, and it's going to be interesting to see what that means because everybody is going to be a quad 1, quad 2 type game. And as you guys know, we talk about this every time when we get to March. Committees this year is going to say they value this or value that or whatever. But what they ultimately value, I think, and they tell us every single year, is how many good teams do you beat. And if everybody right now is that close to being a quad 1 type win, you're just going to rack up all of these different wins no matter who you're playing. And so I think that's going to be the biggest difference this year and why the SEC has a chance to, get 11 or 12 teams in the tournament.
Blake, I think there are 3 top 25 matchups tomorrow. But let me ask you this. Who are you most fascinated with? Who are you most keeping an eye on coming into conference play?
I mean, I think that, and it's interesting because I think you could obviously say this for all three of these teams. And it's wild because one of these teams is ranked number 1 in the AP poll right now. But I think the 3 unbeaten teams, Tennessee, Florida, and Oklahoma, are all fascinating for different reasons. Because the knock on all 3 of them has been they haven't played the schedule that Alabama's played or Auburn's played, or they don't have the kind of signature wins that a Kentucky has over a Duke and a Gonzaga. Even Texas A&M, a lot of good wins. Mississippi State, a lot of good wins. So I think I'm curious to see of those 3 teams. Right now, Tennessee, Florida look the part. I think Oklahoma at times looks the part too, even for a team that's 13-0. The numbers don't exactly love Oklahoma because, their non-conference strength of schedule is like in the 340s, 350s, something like that. Tennessee's is kind of middle of the road. It's not as bad as people make it out to be, but we know how it goes. It's the SEC. If you don't like Tennessee, you're going to pick on them for this or that. But, Florida is a team that Florida has beaten everybody they played except for North Carolina by 13 or more points this season. Like, that is also just an absurd number. And if you talk about teams that pass the eye test, Florida passes the eye test. Like, they look like a machine right now. And so I'm really interested because think about this, right? Tennessee hosts an Arkansas team that I think is getting better and getting healthier, and that's important. Florida goes to Lexington to play Kentucky in what's a very tough start of SEC road game. If Florida loses this one, you're going to see some people immediately say, well, we told you they weren't that good. Same thing with Oklahoma. Where do they go tomorrow? They go to Tuscaloosa to play Alabama, who's a 10-point favorite over a team that's unbeaten. And so I think all 3 of those teams, like these first couple weeks, I'm curious to see how they navigate this and see, not everybody's going to be unbeaten, I think. Those 3 are not going to be unbeaten after the first 2 or 3 weeks of the season. But exactly do we see them start to navigate what is going to be a tougher schedule night in and night out? I think he's the most well-equipped to do that. But listen, it's an unprecedented year for this league, so I'm curious with those 3.
You talk about some of these teams are going to fall back, and yeah, I guess you have to look at Vanderbilt along those lines, I guess. I mean, they're 12-1, but obviously size is going to be an issue for them, isn't it?
Yeah, and look, Vanderbilt's got the combination of size, and their non-conference strength of schedule is like 350th or something. And so when you combine those 2 things together, they are an easy candidate, I think, for people to pinpoint and say, all right, there's one of those teams who's going to fall back a little bit. But I also, on the other side of it, would say that they're one of the more experienced teams in the SEC, and they play a style offensively that reminds me a little bit of what we saw Missouri do 2 years ago. Now, I know what happened to Missouri last year, but think about that Missouri team 2 years ago. It was picked Dennis Gates' first season. They were picked near the bottom of the SEC, but they came out and they were just so good offensively, and they were so efficient and they didn't turn the ball over. And those are all the things that kind of describe Vanderbilt to this point in the season. And so I'm curious to see if they can just play this style, which they're going to be one of the fastest tempo type teams in the SEC. I think they'll be one of those teams going to be entertaining to watch no matter what, just because I think their games will feature a lot of points. It may feature them giving up a lot of points, but I think they're going to score some points too. And so I do wonder if they're able to, without the size, can they just play the small ball and be able to just use that up-tempo type style to really frustrate teams, get some of the big guys elsewhere in foul trouble? I think that's a formula that can work for them. But, also at the same time, when you just look at it, I think they've got, I was pointing out this ridiculous stat. If you look at ESPN's BPI, they do the remaining strength of schedule for, everybody. And some people think, well, it's always just this conference and that conference. No. The top 16 remaining strength of schedules, or the teams that played the 16 strongest schedules left, are all SEC teams. SEC. And I think Vanderbilt is third in that. So because their schedule is so tough, and what is tough, right? It's tough for everybody. Even I think Florida was 16th, and people were saying, oh, look at Florida's got an easy schedule. I'm like, it's the 16th toughest schedule in the country. It just happens to be the last one in the SEC. And so I think the schedule is something where Vanderbilt needs to go win tomorrow at LSU, because these are the kind of games early. They have LSU, Mississippi State, Missouri, South Carolina, their first 4 games. I'm looking at that thinking, if you're going to be able to stay in that NCAA tournament type range and not fall into an absolute brutal slate after that, I think you need to win 3 of those 4 games. And so we'll see if they can do it, but they are one where it's time to see if they can sort of prove it against this kind of schedule.
Blake, I'm curious. We've talked about some teams. Who are some players, outside of the household names coming into the year? Who are some guys that have either caught you by surprise or that in your mind maybe are primed to really do some damage kind of off the beaten path in SEC play?
Yeah, I mean, I mentioned Oklahoma earlier, and I know, a lot of people around our parts probably hadn't watched a lot of Oklahoma basketball this year, but Jeremiah Fears has just been unbelievable as a freshman. And again, that's where if you're trying to find things with Oklahoma, you're like, well, they're going to be led by a freshman. Is that a recipe for success this year in this SEC? We'll find out, but he has been so good. He's easily first-team All-SEC type guy today if you list the teams. And so he is someone going into Alabama tomorrow I think that will be very entertaining to watch, especially in a game like that. But he's going to have to sort of put them on his back at times, I think, for Oklahoma to keep this going. Elsewhere, I think like Georgia's an interesting team. They got multiple guys. I think Georgia's kind of fallen into that. I feel like Mike White at times too is just one of those guys where they just kind of go out and do their thing a little bit. And he took over that program a couple years ago where they were just a complete mess. But now look at this great start they had. Asa Newell is a guy, another young guy that just he's one of the best players in the SEC right now if you look at the numbers. So I think you're seeing like a lot of young guys, and that's what's interesting. Look at a Tahad Pettiford at Auburn, right? Look at LeBaron Philon at Alabama. I think freshmen are getting more of sort of the spotlight than we thought they would because it is such a, it's an older type driven game right now, given, kind of where things are with eligibility and everything. And so I think really honestly, guys, like just go look at the way some of these freshmen are impacting these games. All those guys I mentioned, look at Boogie Flynn at Arkansas, right? I think that's what's going to be kind of the story of SEC play is seeing how many of these freshmen can keep this going, knowing that the game's about to get much more physical. You're going to get in some of the free throw shooting contests that unfortunately the SEC is notorious for, where you're going to have teams shooting 30 or 40 free throws a game. And I'm just curious to see how the physicality plays out with some of these younger guys in a conference like this where we know every single play you're getting bumped and all that. I think the freshmen are definitely one of the big storylines here.
With that physicality, does that lend itself toward cream of the crop kind of is who we kind of think, or is there somebody, a sleeper team that maybe we're still kind of sleeping on? It's hard to think about a team being a sleeper when the league has been so good, but is there a team that, maybe is off the beaten path that could really turn some heads once we get into league play in your mind?
When I think of physicality, aside from the obvious one with Tennessee and the way they're just going to frustrate you, like I always think Texas A&M and Mississippi State, because I feel like Buzz Williams' team, they're always going to shoot free throws. We always have fun with which team is going to play the longest games this season SEC play. Not even close. It'll be Texas A&M. Every game they play will be 2.5 hours because they're going to shoot a lot of free throws because they're physical. And, right. It is a grind where you're going to get a lot of plays that are made in the paint and all that. Mississippi State, look at what Chris Jans has done with that team this year. Like they're right now, if you go to the NCAA tournament, I think Mississippi State would have a strong argument to have a 2 seed. Now, they'd probably be a 3, but they'd have a great argument to be a 2. And that kind of shows you that they've completely flipped the way they played this year. They're more guard-oriented than they are front-court-oriented, as we've seen in the past. And so I think those are the 2 teams. Auburn is the clear favorite, I think, to win the SEC. But if you're looking for one of those teams that's going to be picked behind Tennessee or Alabama or Florida or Kentucky maybe, I think those are the 2 that do they have a legit shot to win the SEC? Maybe not in some people's eyes, but I do think if all goes according to plan and they keep playing the way they have played to this point, they're going to be right there with a shot maybe in that final 2-3 weeks of the season. So those are 2 that I would definitely circle because I think they're probably 2 of the most fascinating ones just because I think they have that ceiling that can get them there. But again, it's going to be tough given what we've seen from maybe the other teams that are sort of sitting above them right now.
Blake Lovell of Southeastern 16 joining us here on Main Street Sports today, presented by the Tennessee Orthopedic Alliance of Columbia. Florida, Tennessee, Oklahoma. Who loses first?
Oklahoma. I just like that at Alabama on Saturday. That's a tough one for me. I'm going to pick Oklahoma on that.
Okay. All right. So you give Florida a puncher's chance at Rupp tomorrow then?
Here's what I told someone yesterday, and I don't we'll see if this holds true. But I said if I'm predicting Florida and Kentucky, I said there's all sorts of scenarios that could play out. Based on what I think, I picked Kentucky to win the game just for what it's worth. But I said, which team do I think could blow out the other team if they play the way they've been playing? I don't know that I think Kentucky can blow out Florida, but I do think Florida could blow out Kentucky. And I think that sort of tells me that maybe I should be leaning in a little bit more on the Gators, but maybe I'm sort of taking that wait and see approach like a lot of other people too. So,
with that said, then which game are you most fascinated by tomorrow as the SEC gets going?
Yeah, I mean, like you mentioned, there's plenty of different options, but I think Tennessee-Arkansas for not just the Tennessee side of things. I think it's for the Arkansas side of things because, this is one where Arkansas is a team that I was very high on coming into the season. A lot of people were doubting Cal. They were saying this team ain't going to play defense. And those two things have, kind of been okay so far. I think it's still the offense is going to just make you frustrated at times, and I think that's going to happen the rest of the season. But now that they're playing better, because they've gotten healthier. They actually have, their entire roster that's playing a bit more. They've played so many games this year where they haven't had their full rotation intact. They're playing a lot better right now, and I'm curious to see. Remember last year, guys, we were talking about Ole Miss. Remember that team that they went unbeaten in non-conference play, first game in SEC play. They had to go to Knoxville, and they just got destroyed by Tennessee. And I think Arkansas is one of those teams where I'm like, if they go in and just get, decimated here, let's say Tennessee holds them to 50-something points or something like that, they lose by 20, then it's like, okay, we really need to rethink our expectations for this Arkansas team. But I don't know if that's going to happen because I think they're very talented. I think they're one of the most talented teams in the league still. It's just, can they get everybody on the same page playing in the same game? That continues to be the story for the Hogs there.
How much of a factor do you expect Jonas Adu coming back to campus to be?
Well, I think it's good for him to finally get on the floor as much as he has over these past couple of weeks, because for a while there I was thinking, man, is this going to be like a lost season for him? Because, it seemed like Cal would throw him in there for 5 minutes or 7 minutes or 9 minutes, and then he'd pull him out and say, yeah, we probably shouldn't have played him. And I'm like, okay, well, so clearly this injury is still an issue. But when you look at it now, he's starting to play in that 20-something minute type range. And, certainly there will be motivations, I think, heading into this game. I know Tennessee fans kind of were on him a little bit after the season. He had struggled in some of those bigger games against, the Zach Eady's and guys like that of the world, which I think a lot of people would struggle in. But just in all fairness to him. But, I think it's a big game for him because, look at the way Akpara and Milicic are playing for Tennessee. They've been such a huge part of the Vols to this point, just, the way they're playing in the front court. So I think Adu is going to have a big game if Arkansas is going to have a shot to even win this one here.
You gave us a little bit of a walkthrough, Blake, earlier, but I'm curious. We've talked about maybe who could be some sleepers. Who's kind of selling us some real fool's gold in your mind? Who is this team that, they've got a great rate. You kind of mentioned Ole Miss getting bopped in Knoxville last year. That one definitely came to mind. But who maybe is not going to survive the rigors of this league in your mind?
Well, I mean, I think to me LSU is a candidate because of the fact that one of their best players is not going to be on the floor. And, when they lost Jalen Reed, whenever that was, several weeks ago now, I did wonder, is that going to be something that really comes back to get them once they get to SEC play? We'll find out. I don't know if it's going to prove to be the case, but, and they're one that is a little bit further down in the metrics and everything. But still, I could see that happening. Honestly, the two other teams – Texas, I don't know what to make of Texas. I really don't, because they're another one. Their non-conference strength of schedule like 357 or something. The two best teams they play were Ohio State and UConn. They lost both those games. I don't know what to make of Texas right now. And the other team is Ole Miss, because they're kind of another one where every time you want to kind of buy in on Ole Miss, what happens? They go play that game at Memphis, they just get blown out. And I'm like, man, I don't know if I saw that coming, because I just saw Mississippi State go in there 4 days before or whatever and just blow out Memphis. And then Ole Miss goes in there and gets blown out. So I think they've got to get their defense where they need it to be. It's still not to that Chris Beard level, top 10, something like that. They're in the 50s or 40s, something like that. So I don't know. Ole Miss is still kind of like they were last year for me. Is this going to be a repeat where they get into SEC play and they just can't withstand the grind? I'm fascinated by them too. So.
Blake Lovell of Southeastern16.com joining us here on Main Street Sports today, presented by the Tennessee Orthopedic Alliance of Columbia, talking a little Southeastern Conference men's basketball as they get ready to open league play tomorrow across the region. Blake, as always, we appreciate your insight and your time and look forward to catching up with you again soon.
Always enjoy it, guys. Thanks for having me.
Awesome. Thank you, Blake.
Stay warm. When we continue here on Main Street Sports today, we'll talk a little college football as we are down to the final four teams playing for a Division I national championship. Stay tuned after this.
Do you want to be a bad man? Yes, you do. Do you want to taste sweet salvation underneath the summer moon? Do you need another hand now? Yes, you do. Go see Miss Josie down on Columbus Avenue. All right, Columbus Avenue.
At Delta Dental of Tennessee, we know our success begins and ends with providing superior quality service, and that includes serving those who need it most. This year, we're celebrating 25 years of giving back to the community we call home. Delta Dental, along with our Smile 180 Foundation, supports Tennessee's dental colleges and oral health education, children's hospitals, free and reduced cost dental clinics, and other like-minded charities. Here's to the next 25 plus years of ensuring healthy smiles.
Whether you're an athlete or a weekend warrior, when it comes to your performance, don't settle for anything less than excellence. We're proud to announce that Mid-Tennessee Bone and Joint Clinic is now Tennessee Orthopedic Alliance of Columbia, where we are redefining sports medicine and orthopedics. Tennessee Orthopedic Alliance's team of expert sports medicine physicians understands the unique demands of your body. TOA Columbia specializes in personalized orthopedic care, offering state-of-the-art treatments for everything from sports injuries to joint replacements. Learn more at toacolumbia.com.
The weekend warm-up edition of Main Street Sports today, presented by the Tennessee Orthopedic Alliance of Columbia, continues. That's Wade Neely. I'm Maurice Patton, and let's talk a little college football, because with yesterday's Sugar Bowl outcome, we got our final four teams for the college football playoff semifinals. We've got number 5 Texas, number 6 Notre Dame, number 7 Penn State, and number 8 Ohio State. 5, 6, 7, 8. In other words, 1, 2, 3, and 4 are all gone. What's that mean? Mr. Neely, any thoughts?
Oh, I was muted there. I was going to say, turns out the buys are cursed, right?
Are the buys cursed, or I don't know. It's maybe the buys shouldn't have been buys. I don't know. It's I've got here. Is it bad seating or is it bad formatting? You know, the teams that got the buys, what, they were off 3 weeks, a month, and maybe that's too long to go without playing a football game.
Hard to say, in my opinion, because it was kind of a mixed bag, right? We opened up with Penn State and Boise, which, yeah, you know, at the end it was a pretty competitive game by and large for the most part. Boise is certainly in the transfer portal looking for a new kicker, I think, at this point. But also, it was pretty competitive. And then Texas, Arizona State was obviously one of the most electric games we've seen in a long time.
Finally.
Arizona State, you can make the case largely unlucky with the way it ended not to win that game. And then Ohio State, the hottest team in the field by far, takes care of Oregon, perhaps the most frustrating, if you will, draw for Oregon. A team that went undefeated was promptly rewarded with a trip to Pasadena, but that was about it because they met the hottest team in the land. And then, we had Notre Dame and Georgia. You got Georgia playing with a backup quarterback versus a really good Notre Dame team who has kind of seemingly exonerated all the demons from that token loss earlier in the year. So kind of a mixed bag. Had a few of these games. We both had a few of these games pegged the way we thought, but kind of like David mentioned on the show yesterday a little bit too. Listen to some of you guys that the Final Four didn't exactly produce a lot of just absolute thrillers every single year. Yeah, we got a few decent games here, a few decent games there, but it wasn't just gripping theater year in, year out. And you kind of maybe can't be surprised that through 2 rounds of, a field that is so much bigger, that we haven't had as many compelling games I think a lot of folks would have hoped or anticipated.
Yeah, I feel like there's obviously some tweaking to be done. I mean, this is the first time out of the box for the 12-team playoff, and there's some adjustments that need making, and it almost feels like you got to let this thing run its course and then figure out what's wrong, if anything, and how do we fix it. So we probably still need to let these final 3 games, these 2 semifinals, and then the championship play out. But man, it kind of looks tough again when your top 4 seeds are all sitting at home, regardless of whether or not they should have been the top 4 seeds. And maybe that's part of the question, but the fact that they are all out and your national champion is going to be at best the 5th best team in the bracket, theoretically speaking. So
fifth best team in the bracket, but like a couple of our guests have said, it's kind of like March Madness, right? It would have been cool to see Arizona State make a run to win this thing, but you don't want them to go too far. Yeah, it would have been cool to see Boise State make a run in this thing, but you don't want them to go too far. At the end, you want sellable household blue bloods. And man, I mean, we basically have that. I know the seeds look a little odd. If we just scratch the numbers out and wrote 1, 2, 3, 4, I think everybody would feel a little better about the situation right now, because you've got 4 of the premier brands, quote unquote, in college football meeting in the semifinals, and you're certainly guaranteed one. Penn State, maybe the low key, maybe 4th person on that pecking order in terms of brand recognition, I suppose, but they're still solid. So you kind of get what you want in terms of your visibility. It just looks a little funky, like to your point, with 5, 6, 7, 8 being in there.
Yeah, and I think if somebody had said, hey, you've got a shot at having an Ohio State Notre Dame national championship game,
college football execs rolling with glee thinking about that in the preseason.
Yeah. So I mean, to your point, I think everybody, seeds aside, should be, relatively cool with this Final Four that we've got. But again, is this, we are given to overreaction to just about everything, and the anti-SEC sentiment is a real thing. I think Herb Street and Feinbaum have created a lot of that anti-sentiment. But regardless, this isn't the death of the Southeastern Conference, is it?
Well, no. I mean, what we're seeing is what I think a lot of folks, if you watch a lot of games this year, the SEC you're just used to flipping on the TV and seeing them dominate. And it didn't happen last year, and it's not going to happen this year unless Texas comes to save the day. And that's okay. I mean, you can't win it every year, but I think what we did see, it kind of depends on what you want, right? Are you cool with a league where imagine if Vanderbilt never upsets Alabama? Who knows what happens with Alabama the rest of the season? Maybe they go on and they get everything together and then they become this juggernaut that wins the whole thing. To me, as a neutral fan in terms of SEC fandom, I don't have a dog in that fight. I want the chaos and I want to see all the teams battling it out. I want to be able to bank on Vanderbilt and Alabama being a fun, competitive game rather than just kind of a throwaway game like it has been for many, many years. And that to me is the fun part. And if it doesn't happen in the postseason, it doesn't happen. We came into this year thinking Georgia and Ohio State were the two most talented teams, and it just didn't play out. I mean, Notre Dame kind of slugged them in the nose in the late stages of the first half and then the early second, of course. And I mean, that's just how the cookie crumbles sometimes. You still got Texas and OSU, which is going to be great. And I think Penn State, Notre Dame is going to be pretty fun too. But unless Texas saves the day, they'll be shut out again this year.
Yeah. Hats off, by the way, to former Pearl Cone standout Jalen Harrison, who had that big kickoff return to open the second half for Notre Dame in that 23-10 win yesterday. Transfer from Marshall, Jaden Harrison, not Jalen, but broke that game open, made it 20-3, and pretty much closed the door on any hopes for a Georgia comeback at that point. Felt like just the way they were struggling to get any consistency offensively. So, yeah, big play at a big time for the former Firebird right there.
That was the most eye-opening thing to me. We talked before the break, before we closed last year, that Riley Mills, the standout defensive end for Notre Dame, wouldn't go, and that's what really kind of tipped me toward picking Georgia. But man, Notre Dame still just dominated. You can't even really totally throw that on Stockton, because at one point he was like 9 of 13, 9 of 12 passing. I mean, had a pretty decent game, but up front they just kind of got whipped, and that is something we certainly are not used to seeing from a Kirby Smart team.
I'm gonna tell you something. The ball comes out of Gunnar Stockton's hands differently than it does a lot of quarterbacks at the collegiate level. Arm talent is not an issue for that kid. He can sling it. I'll be interested to see if Georgia gets into the portal to try to upgrade there, or if they're ready to ride with him as QB1 for 25. But that guy can throw the ball, so keep an eye on him. Our number one of the weekend warm-up here on Main Street Sports Today, presented by the Tennessee Orthopedic Alliance of Columbia, is in the books. When we return from this break for our number two, we'll talk a little NFL. And again, Sunday night's matchup to close out the regular season is going to be it's beyond description. I'm so looking forward to it. Stay tuned after this.
Hi, I'm Dr. Vilay Saisuka, CEO and founder of Premier Foot and Ankle Centers of Tennessee here in Murfreesboro. We offer foot and ankle care from ingrown toenails to diabetic foot wounds. We also fix ankle fractures and things like that.
Call us today to schedule an appointment. We look forward to seeing you.
Because here at Premier Foot and Ankle, we believe that
the journey begins with happy feet.
Whether you're an athlete or a weekend warrior, when it comes to your performance, don't settle for anything less than excellence. We're proud to announce that Mid-Tennessee Bone and Joint Clinic is now Tennessee Orthopedic Alliance of Columbia, where we are redefining sports medicine and orthopedics. Tennessee Orthopedic Alliance's team of expert sports medicine physicians understands the unique demands of your body. TOA Columbia specializes in personalized orthopedic care, offering state-of-the-art treatments for everything from sports injuries to joint replacements. Learn more at toacolumbia.com. Jones & Lang Sporting Goods here in Columbia has been outfitting teams, officials, and anybody else from T-ball to college for 50-plus years. Be sure and check them out at 931-388-8060 or online at jonesandlang.com. Jones & Lang Sporting Goods, the look of a winner.
Zion Christian Academy, zioneagles.org or 931-388-5731. You can schedule your appointment. Go tour their campus. It is beautiful over there, and you're definitely going to want to see it. Again, it's zioneagles.org. Give them a call, 931-388-5731, and schedule your tour today. Custom Stone Handler supplies over 600 distributors and suppliers with quality stone products. Along with River Stone, we produce and distribute over 100 building, landscape, and other bulk products. Our goal is to provide quality products, service, and partnerships to ensure our customers' success. We firmly believe that the measure of any person or company is how they treat other people and customers. Give them a call at 931-490-4990 or visit CustomStonehandlers.com.
Piggly Wiggly, located in Neely's Mill Shopping Center, is Columbia's locally owned and operated Cost Plus 10 grocery store dedicated to serving the community with low prices and smiling faces. Piggly Wiggly offers fresh, hand-cut meats daily, as well as daily hot plate lunches from their deli counter. You're certain to see smiling faces and a helping hand when you're here at Piggly Wiggly. Come by and check out our fresh produce, high-quality meats, and more. Down home, down the street, we'll see you at the Pig.
Street Sports Today, presented by the Tennessee Orthopedic Alliance of Columbia, gets going right now. That's Wade Neely. I'm Maurice Patton. We are coming to you from our respective homes, and we're talking a little National Football League Week 18 action. And we're going to start at the end, basically, because Minnesota goes to Detroit in a Sunday night matchup. Both these teams are 14-2. They are tied atop the NFC North. The winner will be the number 1 seed in the NFC. The loser will be the number 5 seed. Man, nothing at stake here.
Yeah, this one is going to be epic, and I'm so glad everybody held serve. You know, there was a week or two in the last 2 weeks where the Lions and the Vikings looked a little wobbly and looked like we would be denied of this opportunity. But not only did they succeed, this is as good as it gets. This is as big as it gets. The script writers, they know what they're doing for the NFL, and they have given us a dandy heading into the final week of the regular season.
You know, I don't think or talk much about TV numbers and that kind of thing, but you know, with this being on network TV, it's on NBC. I am interested to see what kind of numbers this thing does, because it just doesn't get any better than this.
It's going to be massive. First time in NFL history that 2 teams with at least 13 wins are going to go head to head. I mean, this has got all of the intangibles for a big game, and you got Dan Campbell, who in a few other years may be up for Coach of the Year, but the reason he's not going to win Coach of the Year is because the guy across the sideline from him, Kevin O'Connell's going to win Coach of the Year. So, I mean, it is everything about this is set up. The stakes could not be any higher. And like you pointed out a moment ago, the loser of this game kind of gets a cruel hand. You just talked about reseeding in the college football playoff. It's going to be kind of tragic that this plays out the way it does, because, man, this will be a tough pill to swallow if whoever does come out on the short end of this one.
You know who it's really a tough pill to swallow for? It's a tough pill to swallow for either the Falcons or the Bucks, because they're going to be the number 4 seed, right?
Set up to be the 4 seed. I mean, we've seen crazy things happen. You know, I remember the Beastquake with a sub 500 Seahawks team getting the win. That's the weird, fluky thing. It ain't going to be a guarantee. That's what makes Sunday night so compelling too, is now you're talking about a team that's going to be entering off a loss with that 1 seed so dangerously close to, in their fingertips, just slipping through. And now you got to rally and probably face, unless something crazy happens, probably face Tampa Bay But Atlanta, if Atlanta gets in, then they're going to be playing with house money and rolling really hot. So, I mean, it's not as much of a gimme, I don't think, as you think. But yeah, if you're Tampa Bay or Atlanta, you're like, what the heck, man? We're supposed to be in this thing, and instead we got to deal with one of these two behemoths.
Right. Yeah. So, and there's a lot at stake here, and one of the many things that I think is so cool about this game is that you've got two quarterbacks that are really at the top of their game right now, man. Sam Darnold is playing really well, and I remember a couple of preseasons ago talking about the Lions. I said, I don't know that you can trust Jared Goff. Well, I mean, here, get the crow ready because I'm ready to eat it right now. This guy's been playing lights out. It's been fantastic. Now, I mean, you got to look at what he's had to work with, but at the same time, he hasn't screwed it up by any means. So I just think it's going to be a really fun game to watch. Really looking forward to it.
Yeah, great way to close it out. Darnold has been as electric as what I think a lot of folks anticipated him coming into the league out of USC. He's been fantastic. He's in a weird way put the Vikings in a very unique spot after this season. They got to figure out what to do with him now. A couple weeks ago, it seemed like he was destined to be one of those proverbial bridge quarterbacks, maybe even coming to Nashville. But now, I mean, they're throwing him up in the locker room. I mean, it brings a tear to your eye when you see how the team has rallied around this guy. And it's been a fun ride. And, on the other side, Goff, yeah, he's been playing great. He was a fringe MVP candidate until probably 5 or 6 weeks ago when Jackson and certainly Allen kind of have really distanced themselves. But he's been playing lights out. And that's what's been impressive about Detroit, too. You're right. He's dragging that team to what they're doing right now, and that's a team that's just been decimated and riddled with injuries all season.
Particularly on the defensive side of the ball, but also Montgomery.
Montgomery being out, and obviously Hutchinson going out early was the other huge name for them, and they're still finding ways to win. The only interesting thing is they've been getting a little squirrely and playing a little close to the fire. It feels like almost since around Thanksgiving when they almost blew that game to Chicago in embarrassing fashion, it feels like Minnesota's been the more quote unquote rigid or consistent team thus far. Detroit has certainly not done anything too outrageous, but it just feels like they're a little close to the fire. But I think deep down, that's kind of how Dan Campbell likes it.
Yeah. Meanwhile, when you get to this time of year and teams have their playoff situation sewed up and they're ready to make that run toward the Super Bowl, you start trying to protect guys and get guys out of harm's way and that kind of thing. Apparently, a number of Eagles will sit against the Giants this weekend. One guy in particular, former Giants running back Saquon Barkley, who's got a shot at the all-time single-season rushing record. It kind of would have been a full circle moment, but at the end of the day, it wasn't in God's plan. I've got bigger things in mind, and we've got a chance to rest and get ready to roll for the playoffs. Is a very mature approach for Saquon. But, man, there's got to be a part of him that would love to go for 102 or more, which would be enough to break Eric Dickerson's record against his former team.
Yeah, and honestly, kind of somewhat surprised. The Eagles are in a weird spot, right? With Hurts still being in concussion protocol. You feel like this time next week he's probably going to be fully cleared and be ready to go. But the Eagles are the one team in the NFC. They have nothing to gain, and they're kind of in that classic rest situation. But in a weird way, they found themselves dead in the crosshairs of maybe the most interesting situation, chasing Dickerson's record there.
Yeah. He makes those decisions, talking about Nick Sirianni, and whatever decision he wanted to make, I let him know that if you let me play, I'm going to go out there and make sure I get it. And if I don't, I'm okay with that too. So, I mean, it's got to be tough for a player, man. I mean, you're not guaranteed of having another shot to do something like this. And especially in your first year with your new team and everything else that goes around the year that he has had this year. I mean, I think it's a pretty big ask, but at the same time, you're asking for all the right reasons, I guess. So,
yeah, there was a game earlier this year where there was some good footage. I wish I had thought about this earlier. We could play that, but Barkley's on the sideline. He's already got 2 touchdowns. It was one of the early regular season games, and they asked him if he wanted a easy shot at a third, and he basically says, "No, I'm good. Let the young guys get in there." So, I mean, that's the kind of guy we're talking about in this regard. I am curious, Mo, though. You know, he's sitting there at 2,005 yards. If he was at like 1990, I wonder how many reps he plays. Now he's already got the 2,000. If he didn't have the 2,000, I wonder if we're maybe having a little bit of a different conversation. But it's definitely not worth the risk. If you're buying into the team ball concept, if you're buying into bigger goals, Super Bowl aspirations, then yeah, as weird and awkward as it is, this is the right move. And it's kind of nice that it's playing out without much consternation because a different team, a different player, a different coach, perhaps this could have been a really weird situation. The Eagles kind of got lucky in a sense. There was not a bigger fuss about this down the stretch.
Yeah, I mean, a different player in particular, it could be a different situation all the way around. But yeah, you know, fortunately for everybody involved, he's on board and he's ready to go out and chase a NFC championship and a Super Bowl appearance and a Super Bowl championship. And I guess coming from the Giants, maybe that's kind of where you are, because it's not like they've played for any of those things while he was there. Meanwhile, you know, we had all the uproar with Cam Ward and Miami's bowl game appearance late last week, early this week. It starts to run together after a while when you've been off in particular. But Ward played the first half, got his record for touchdown passes, did not play the second half. There's some conjecture as to whether or not Cristobal had already decided that he wasn't going to play, but then Cristobal just kind of leaves it out there and kind of throws Cam Ward under the bus. Anyway, I say all that to say this. Josh Allen is expected to start for Buffalo to keep his consecutive game streak going, but is not expected to play for very long. Thoughts?
Yeah. In that sense, very similar to the Ravens, that I don't know that we'll see many of these guys out there very long. Kind of not surprised. The big thing too, right? And the Eagles are in the same boat being the number 2. We've talked a little bit over the course of the break, but the Chiefs are in the weird spot. You know, man, if you rest your starters week 18 and then you have the bye, I mean, you're talking about a calendar month between your last meaningful snaps for some of these guys. So I kind of, just me personally, my approach, if I was a player, if I was a coach, and we'll see some of this, and we'll ask Ben about it in a moment with the Titans and the Texans. The Texans and some of these other teams and players, you need a little seasoning, just a dash. You don't necessarily want to roll out there the whole game. Kind of treat it like a preseason in my mind, just because you don't want to come out absolutely cold and absolutely flat when you need it the most. I'm okay with that.
Speaking of the AFC top-seeded Kansas City Chiefs, would you have ever thought that Patrick Mahomes would not be a Pro Bowl quarterback?
Man, cold world, isn't it?
It is. Definitely a what have you done for me lately kind of thing. He is an alternate for this year's Pro Bowl games, which, given the whatever this is, he's probably just as well with it, to be honest. But I think it's more the honor than the reality of it, and the fact that he's not. Now, I guess Lamar Allen, and Burrow are your three guys. So
yeah, your three MVP leaders, you know, are the guys ahead of you, and you can only carry three. So I mean, it's conceivable, I guess.
I mean, it makes sense when you dive into it, but the initial what Mahomes isn't named to the Pro Bowl, it kind of takes you a little aback. So
no doubt. Now I'll tell you this: I did shout out to Pardon My Take. Listen to this part today when they were going into it. The script writers also, you know, this won't help the Chiefs haters of the world because Mahomes, you know, Mahomes has ascended to the level. He doesn't really give two flips about the Pro Bowl. Let's just be honest.
Especially in the form that it is now.
Yeah, I feel comfortable in saying that. But now, if you really want to look for a little extra motivation, you just giving the Chiefs just even a little extra motivation. So, you know, thanks NFL, thanks Pro Bowl voters. You got it ticked off Mahomes coming into the playoffs now. Even
on
though
top
deep
of
down,
everything else,
even though deep down that's the level of superstar you hope to ascend to, that you don't even care that you don't get picked to the Pro Bowl.
Yeah. We're going to be speaking in the next segment with Ben Arthur of NFL on Fox, talking about this Texans-Titans game coming up. But it has been announced Will Levis will get the start at quarterback Sunday. We'll let him play, let him take a shot to finish off the season on a good note and play well, says Brian Callahan in this report by ESPN's Teron Davenport. Both are expected to play.
Mm-hmm.
If Levis plays well and is feeling it, he'll continue to play, but Callahan still plans to find time for both quarterbacks. Interesting.
Yeah,
something to keep an eye on.
Preseason vibes. They're just roll out, see what happens. Roll out, see what happens. Can be an interesting game. It's supposed to be gross weather. Not really looking forward to being there Sunday because it's going to be pretty miserable. And then the Texans, as we mentioned a moment ago, they're going to throw, I think, a few starters out for a little bit just because they've lost like 5 of their last 8 games. They have to have some guys out there just to get positive momentum a little bit because they've really struggled. It'll be a pretty gross situation for the Tennessee Oilers, I guess, technically, for this weekend.
Yeah. As if folks in Houston aren't upset enough, they're going to roll out the Love You Blue throwbacks on Sunday. We'll talk a little bit more to Ben about that as well. So let's take a break here on the weekend warm-up edition of Main Street Sports Today, presented by the Tennessee Orthopedic Alliance of Columbia. We'll come back. We will get Ben Arthur of NFL on Fox on with us, and we'll talk a little Titans. Stay tuned after this.
Hi, I'm Riley, a certified physician associate here at Premier Foot and Ankle Centers of Tennessee. We have a couple locations, Murfreesboro, McMinnville, as well as Franklin. We treat people of all ages. We're excited to get you back on your feet and hope we can help you today.
Call us today to schedule an appointment. We look forward to seeing you.
Because here at Premier Foot and Ankle, we believe that
the journey begins with happy feet.
You're seeing the signs too, right?
What signs?
Whether you're an athlete or a weekend warrior, when it comes to your performance, don't settle for anything less than excellence. We're proud to announce that Mid-Tennessee Bone and Joint Clinic is now Tennessee Orthopedic Alliance of Columbia, where we are redefining sports medicine and orthopedics. Tennessee Orthopedic Alliance's team of expert sports medicine physicians understands the unique demands of your body. TOA Columbia specializes in personalized orthopedic care, offering state-of-the-art treatments for everything from sports injuries to joint replacements. Learn more at toacolumbia.com. Jones & Lang Sporting Goods here in Columbia has been outfitting teams, officials, and anybody else from T-ball to college for 50 plus years. Be sure and check them out at 931-388-8060 or online at jonesandlang.com. Jones & Lang Sporting Goods, the look of a winner.
Zion Christian Academy, zioneagles.org or 931-388-5731. You can schedule your appointment. Go tour their campus. It is beautiful over there, and you're definitely going to want to see it. Again, it's zioneagles.org. Give them a call, 931-388-5731, and schedule your tour today.
Piggly Wiggly, located in Neely's Mill Shopping Center, is Columbia's locally owned and operated Cost Plus 10 grocery store dedicated to serving the community with low prices and smiling faces. Piggly Wiggly offers fresh, hand-cut meats daily as well as daily hot plate lunches from their deli counter. You're certain to see smiling faces and a helping hand when you're here at Piggly Wiggly. Come by and check out our fresh produce, high-quality meats, and more. Down home, down the street, we'll see you at the Pig.
Continues here on Main Street Sports Today, presented by the Tennessee Orthopedic Alliance of Columbia. That's Wade Neely. I'm Maurice Patton, and we are joined now by Ben Arthur of NFL on Fox as we consider the Tennessee Titans' final game of the 2024 season when they will host the Houston Texans in an AFC South matchup. Ben, good afternoon.
Good afternoon, guys. How are you doing?
What's up, Ben?
We're doing all right, man. Hey, I would imagine that folks who have had to watch this team for 16 weeks now, 16 games, are about ready to be done watching them. Is that pretty fair?
Yeah, I'd say that's a fair argument. Look, I mean, it's been a miserable season. I mean, no one had the highest of expectations for this team coming in, but there was optimism, right? Kind of new coach, new vision, all the free agents they added, the draft they had. I mean, there was certainly optimism coming in. No one could have anticipated just how bad it's been, the way Will Levis regressed and ultimately made the decision about kind of pursuing a quarterback very easy for the Titans. And so, yeah, there hasn't been a lot to smile about, but I mean, you get a high draft pick when you're bad, right? And certainly a lot of stakes here against Houston for the finale. You lose, you're guaranteed at least a top 2 pick. If you win, it gets kind of interesting, right? Because you could fall to 6 or 7, however that works. But yeah, I mean, it's going to be really fascinating to kind of see how it all ends. I don't know, just the way the NFL goes, right? I wouldn't be so surprised if the Titans ended up winning this game and people being upset about that. But yeah, it's been a tough year for kind of everyone who follows the Titans, but kind of hopeful, I guess, if you're a fan of this team, of kind of what could come. I mean, there's a lot of uncertainty in terms of what the leadership is going to look like, and then what this team is going to look like as well. But from a football perspective, it's finally coming to an end, because it has been a rough watch the entire year.
With all of that said, how surprised are you that Levis is getting the start Sunday?
I'm not really surprised. And look, even though Levis is starting, it sounds like Mason Rudolph is going to play too. There's that intention to play both guys, kind of last chance for both to kind of, I guess, give the franchise one last thing to think about. At this point, I think if you're the team, the direction you're heading. I don't know how much one final game with no stakes will mean. But for Levis, it could be an audition for future opportunities, right? Like, we don't know what his future is in Tennessee. Maybe another team will want to give him a flyer. Maybe he could be in the mix for the backup job next year. Who knows? No one really knows what this is all going to look like. But yeah, like I said, kind of one last opportunity for him and Mason Rudolph with the team. So I guess we'll see how it goes.
What is your sell on this game then, Ben? I guess I'm thinking maybe, is there anybody or any position group? Are there any players or anybody that jumps out to you that needs to have a good showing? Obviously, Levis and Rudolph certainly would like to, but who else? And we'll talk about Pollard and maybe some financial gain for him later, I suppose. But anybody else that needs maybe on the fringe for the Titans to have a big game this week going forward?
Who needs to have a good game? It's an interesting question. I don't know that any. I mean, obviously, you want to see the young guys. You want to see them play well. That there's going to be some turnover on this team. I mean, there's some guys you're locked in on or locked in with just because of the nature of their contract. But in terms of kind of what this is going to look like next year, right? Because there is going to be a reset of some sort. So you do want to see those young guys really show that they're a part of what the future of this team could be. Trying to think of specific guys. I mean, there's so many guys who are not playing as well. If you saw the injury report, a long list of guys who are not playing, a lot of key contributors. So yeah, I think I really just go back to a lot of the young guys, whether it's Brownlee, whether it's Skoronski, whether it's Cedric Gray, James Williams. A lot of those kinds of guys, because those are some of the guys you hope are part of the foundation of a stronger team moving forward. And so I think if you're the Titans, you want to see them put a good step forward in the last game of the year.
I think the way you answered that kind of really did answer my question. Is we kind of know what there is to know. I guess with that being said, Ben, the Titans obviously, in terms of your draft order, could certainly help or hinder, depending on your viewpoint, I suppose. But on the flip side, while we got you and talking AFC South, what does Houston want to get in this game? Because, man, Mo and I just broke it down. They have been in a real funk. This has been a weird season for them, but they have certainly not played any of their best ball down the stretch here, coming in at 9-7.
Yeah, they've been quite the disappointment. And look, right, they're still in the playoffs. They still have a winning record. They won the AFC South again. But when we look at kind of what the expectations of this team were, and look, in the beginning of the year, it was like, okay, they're still winning, but it doesn't look quite right. But then it just kept looking not quite right. And now it's actually started to look quite bad. And then coming off of that game, on that embarrassment on Christmas Day in Houston, right? You have Beyonce performing at halftime in your city, and you get drubbed 31-2. And look, I think honestly, if the Texans had played better in that game, maybe the Texans' strategy is different in terms of playing their guys. I mean, Nico Ryans is pretty adamant that his guys are going to play. And so maybe if they had at least played better, maybe their calculus is a bit different. But they need to get some positive momentum heading into the playoffs, right? Because they don't have any. And so their top guys need to play well. And it's everyone, right? I mean, CJ Stroud needs to play better. Like he has not been very good in a lot of parts of this season. I mean, I think their defense has really held them together. I mean, it's quite frankly, it's been a Super Bowl caliber defense just across the board. You look at the advanced metrics, what their D line is doing, what their secondary has done. But offense, it's like you just don't know what you're getting. You don't know what you're getting from CJ Stroud. The run game, which has been with Joe Mixon, has really kind of been their engine, but that's been so inconsistent, and they've had to pull some guys on the O-line as well. So I think if you're Houston, you just want to just string some drives together, really get any kind of momentum and entering the playoffs.
Need to mention as well, former Columbia Central High School standout Shaq Mason will not play Sunday. The Texans right guard suffered a MCL sprain in that loss to Kansas City a couple of weeks ago and has not practiced, so he won't play. It's unfortunate that he doesn't get to play in his homecoming, but obviously they're wanting to try to get him healthy for whatever playoff push they're able to make. But Shaq Mason won't be playing, and I assume won't be dressing for the Titans. Ben Arthur of NFL on Fox joining us here on Main Street Sports today. Speaking of dressing, a little added juice to a game that could certainly use some. The Titans will be wearing their throwback Houston/Tennessee Oilers uniforms for this matchup, which always tends to piss off the folks in Houston. But, today is Bud Adams's birthday. So if there was ever a time to wear them, this would be it, I would think. So, I don't know. Once the whistle goes off and the kickoff goes up, what it means necessarily, but there will certainly be a lot of talk, I'd imagine, about what the Titans are wearing Sunday.
Yeah, there absolutely will be, right? And these games against the Texans always mean more for Amy Adams Strunk and her family, given the her family's history there, the franchise and whatnot. I mean, obviously, from a macro perspective, losing this game would probably for the best for the franchise, but knowing kind of how ownership feels about the Texans, I mean, they're probably wanting to win too, because it's Texans games are just different, and you hear what kind of players say about like weeks when they know they're facing the Texans and how kind of the messaging is packaged and whatnot. There's a different feel to it as well. Like if I remember for the first game, Jarvis Brownlee, being a rookie, like he really got a sense of kind of what facing the Texans means for ownership here. So it's always going to mean more, right? And so it's going to be interesting to see how this plays out, just because of kind of how the Titans, they have nothing to lose, but they're also having these really symbolic jerseys, and Titans ownership, their ties to Houston, but then also the Texans' desire to, like I said earlier, kind of put that best step forward ahead of the playoffs. So I think it'll be a really interesting game. So,
you mentioned if the Titans lose, then they get at worst the number 2 pick in the draft. I wonder what that means when you're looking at a roster that has so many deficiencies, Ben. I mean, there are so many different directions you can go in with this team at that spot, and I don't even know if that spot, if that number 2 pick, if that's what it is, necessarily helps you in and of itself. I wonder if they exercise that pick.
Well, you look at the state of this Titans roster. I mean, you have to strongly consider trading back, kind of regardless, right? Because I think previous hits I've done with you guys on the show, it's like this, they don't have a lot of young talent, right? They obviously need to get better at drafting, but they need a bigger nucleus of young talent on this team. And so I think regardless of kind of where you end up, and maybe this is more likely if they end up out of the top 5, but like trading back to get more picks and whatnot. And look, like I think assuming you have another year of like Callahan and Carthon, that tandem, and we don't really know at this point. But assuming that they get a second year together, there is going to be a lot more pressure to show results sooner, right? And so with that said, I think there's a situation where they pursue a veteran quarterback and then just really focus on building up the roster around the veteran quarterback. Because if you're taking another rookie quarterback, you're throwing another dart, right? And assuming these two guys are going to be leading the team, they're not going to have the same leeway that they did entering this year. And so I think that would make it even more likely that trading back is something you look at. But yeah, like you said, Mo, I mean, there are so many needs, right? Beyond quarterback, you can look at cornerback because you don't know about Snead's future. Just with the whole injury situation, right? They need a premier edge rusher. They need a right tackle. They need so many different things, and so yeah, where they end up is maybe ultimately going to dictate kind of how they proceed. But I think you have to really strongly consider trading back, and especially at a draft where a lot of the people who look at the draft, kind of the pundits, those in the scouting community, are saying there aren't all that many guys who have first round grades as of right now. And so I think trading back is a really, really strong possibility if you're the Titans.
Ben, I got to ask you, you mentioned the words pressure and results a minute ago, and I got to ask you, covering the AFC South, where on earth do the Colts go from here? What are you hearing?
The Colts need to they need a clean house. I think it's at that point. I know the Ursays have a love for Chris Ballard, obviously, because he's been kept through all these middling years. But at a certain point, and especially you look at their approach entering 2024, where they basically said, okay, we're 9-8. We're basically a conversion away from getting into the playoffs. We're just going to re-sign all of our key guys. We're just going to put a healthy Anthony Richardson back in there. And we're going to be like this contender, really well positioned moving forward. But Anthony Richardson is not looking like your long-term guy. I mean, he'll get 2025 at least as of now, but you haven't seen the progress with him. And then it's just kind of been a flop, right? And then Shane Steichen has really seemed to regress on multiple standpoints. I don't think they implemented this offense around Anthony Richardson properly until like after they had benched him and brought him back. Then all of a sudden they're like, oh, we can use him on designed runs and whatnot, and maybe ease him into the game when he's not as natural of a passer. You need to lean into his strengths. It didn't seem like they figured that out until the later part of the year. It's just a really disappointing all year round for the Colts, and it's a finish to the season that really embodies their last several years. Mm-hmm. Like they're not a bad team, but they're not a great team. They're somewhat good, somewhat average, but they're not able in the end to do what it takes to get into the playoffs. And that's what we saw against the Giants last week. That's what we saw the year prior when they couldn't get the AFC South title. And then the year before that, I believe that's when they lost in Jacksonville, or that may have been the year before that. And that's kind of when that was kind of like the ending of the Carson Wentz situation. But it's a repeated trend with the Colts, right? They're just this average team that can't get over the hump. And so I think this could be the offseason where we really see Jim Irsay kind of put his foot down and kind of start from scratch in terms of leadership. So that's kind of my sense.
You know, the whole mishandling of the quarterback situation just feels like such an indictment of Steichen and that staff that almost feels like it's more than they can recover from to me. So I'll be interested to see how that goes. And like you said, Chris Ballard, it's it's bizarre to me that he has been able to stick around as long as he has. So very, very interesting stuff coming up across the AFC South. Ben Arthur of Fox Sports joining us here on Main Street Sports today. We've not talked about Jacksonville, and we probably should.
Hey, real quick, I had to double check to make sure this was right, but I heard this stat the other day. This while on the Colts, this blows my mind.
Okay.
Their last AFC South title was in 2014. Every other team in the division has not only won this league, but has won it twice since then. So that kind of speaks to what we're talking about when we talk about that string of ineptitude there, or mediocrity.
Yeah.
So Jacksonville has won it twice?
Jacksonville twice, Houston twice, and the Titans twice, and the Colts none. So I mean, it is. We think we got it bad here in Nashville, but I mean, and yeah, they're winning some more regular season games this season, but man, it feels like they are floundering right now.
Yeah. They don't want to be reminded of that, I don't think. So, but yeah, what are you seeing down south, Ben?
With the Jags?
Yeah.
I mean, obviously, they're heading in the direction of getting a new coach, new GM as well. That's all indications are that. I mean, Shad Khan is an owner that has shown a lot of patience, but I mean, you squander a roster of this caliber, and look, the Jags actually have a really talented roster. Like, they have a lot of guys who are guys you build a team around, and most
they said going into the preseason it was their most talented roster they've ever assembled, is what Peterson said.
Yeah, and a lot of people have made jokes of that just because of how their season ultimately played out, but I wouldn't really necessarily disagree all that much. I mean, they have a lot of talent. You look at what Brian Thomas Jr. has done in particular. I mean, he's just another superstar at the wide receiver position coming out of LSU. And we know Trevor Lawrence isn't necessarily what he was hyped to be, but he can be good enough. And you have two good running backs, you have two great edge rushers, you have a good cornerback. They have all these pieces here and there, but they just need the right leadership. And it's kind of it's hard. It's kind of a head scratcher how it all turned upside down for Doug Peterson, right? Because they were headed in the right direction.
Felt like it.
Until they weren't.
Until they weren't. It was really that Monday night game last year against the Bengals when with the win, they would have been the number one seed in the AFC. Hard to believe now with the context we have. But ever since then, just awful. And so I think with the right leadership, particularly with the right offensive mind, who can maximize these different pieces that they have, making sure Trevor Lawrence, really getting him back on track is the biggest objective, right? Because you just put in a 5-year, $275 million investment into him. So I think that's objective number one. But beyond that, they do have some talent to work with. It's just a matter about having the right scheme, the right kind of leadership to bring it all together.
There you go. And Arthur of Main Street Sports today, presented by the Tennessee Orthopedic Alliance of Columbia. As always, Ben, we appreciate it, and look forward to checking in with you here during the off season to see what's going on out at Ascension St. Thomas Sports Park.
Sounds great. Thank you, guys. Appreciate you.
All right, we'll talk. When we continue here on Main Street Sports today, it'll be the grab bag. So stay tuned when we come back.
This holiday season, the largest lantern festival in the country returns to Nashville Zoo. Experience more than 1,000 all-new, handcrafted lanterns, towering creatures, magical worlds, and a North Pole village. At the center of it all, the Smashville Ice Rink. Welcome back to Zoolumination at Nashville Zoo. Bigger, brighter, and better than ever.
Final segment of the weekend warm-up here on Main Street Sports Today, presented by the Tennessee Orthopedic Alliance of Columbia. That's Wade Neely. I'm Maurice Patton, and we've got to talk Preds, I guess.
Surely
they
not.
are here. Yeah, well,
Come on, man.
I'm not happy about it.
Ruining my new year.
Yeah, it's pretty much a downer for sure. They take their 11-20-7 record on the road to Vancouver tonight for a 9:00 puck drop, and man, Saros is expected to be in goal tonight. This will be the first game of the new year after closing 2024 on a 3-game skid, losing at St. Louis, at Winnipeg, and at Minnesota. So trying to get things righted to open 2025 here. But, man, we just talked with Ben about Jacksonville and the talent that they had on their roster. And it just feels like a broken record, man. I just don't know how this team has been as bad as they have been with the moves that they made over the offseason.
Man, it's been tough, and it feels like when the season first began, it felt like we kind of dove into, okay, it's going to take some time, or they've been the victim of some bad luck. And now over the last month and a half, it feels like they've found different ways to lose. On nights, it feels like the offense has stepped up and buried a couple goals. The defense has kind of let them down. And it feels like on nights when the defense has played lights out, they haven't been able to buy a goal. So it's kind of they've got all the familiar makings, it feels like, of season from hell. And man, it's pretty grim for Smashville these days.
Yeah, it really is, and it does. I mean, I think you described it perfectly. It feels like the season from hell. I mean, when you look up at the top of the standings in the West, Winnipeg is 27-11-2. Somehow the Preds are ahead of the Blackhawks, even at 11-20-7, because the Blackhawks are 12-24-2. But man, and the Sharks are 12-23-6. So they still have the fewest wins of anybody in the Western Conference. Scratch that. They have the fewest wins of anyone in the National Hockey League. So it's as bad as it feels, I guess.
Yeah, it's been rough, and got worse yesterday. I think it was one of the younger guys, Zach LaRue. He gets suspended 3 games for something I never even heard of, and I still don't even know necessarily what he did. But slew footing is what he's guilty of, and so he's out. I mean, it's rough. You mentioned Chicago too. It's been bad for them. You know, it's been so bad for them. They basically, since the first month of the season, all they've had to look forward to was the Winter Classic the other night, and then they got flat out embarrassed on a national audience on New Year's Day at Wrigley Field, and so they can go back to void of all expectations. Whereas the Preds, I think, especially in a way with the way that last year went, I think fans are still deep down somehow just hoping that magical run is going to be there. And at this point, objectively, you got to look at it and say, if not for last year's magical run, you'd be talking about back-to-back seasons of real disappointment at this point.
Also, you're kind of running out of time for that magical run, I would think.
Yeah, it feels like it. Not only are they struggling, but the frustrating part is, you look at the top of the West and the Jets. That's a team that Nashville is not only capable of beating, but has beat. It feels like they're just sliding into oblivion, and the gap between them and the Blues currently sits at 11 points. I mean, the competitive balance in the Central stops with the Blues, and then you got the Preds and the Blackhawks kind of there as real afterthoughts. They're kind of trending towards very nebulous second half of the season where there's not much to be excited about.
Yeah, not much to be excited about. Not much reason to really, tune in.
Yeah,
And I
we're
think
actually obligated to revise the terms of that contract on when we're contractually obligated to keep mentioning them because they're borderline going to be irrelevant if they're not careful.
I think that's what you have to be concerned about if you're the Preds is becoming, irrelevant. And, that's just not where you want this community to get to with your team is, that we don't really care one way. Apathetic is the word that I was looking for. And I was kind of stalling until it came to me. But yeah, I mean, this community has shown that it will support winners. The fewest wins in the league isn't going to get folks excited about your product. So, I don't know what there is for them to do, but it's got to be a concern, I would think.
Absolutely. And yeah, the frustrating part is even if they keep sliding, there will be nights where they go out and pull off a win versus like a Winnipeg versus a Vegas. And then you're like, well, where the heck did that come from? And then they'll lose to the Red Wings or to, 3 in a row. I mean, they will go out and really shoot themselves in the foot. So that's the frustrating part is they can put it together on any given night and beat anybody in the league. But that consistency is just not there this year.
Memphis goes to Sacramento tonight. Coming off of a victory in their last outing, they are 23-11 now, leading the Southwest Division. A half game up on that Houston team that you are keeping an eye on. And John's healthy.
Maybe. He's he might be good to go. He's been out with that shoulder injury the last couple games.
That's right. Okay.
But this is kind of what I mentioned too. The Grizz, they have yet to, and this is why I don't think they're going to be in the Butler sweepstakes, is they haven't really played more than 2 or 3 games this season with everybody healthy. You still got G.G. Jackson out, but Brandon Clark and Zach Edey, who've been out, they're back. Reported just a minute ago, they're going to be they were a shoot around today. But now Morant's out. We've seen stretches where Bain has been out. We've seen Triple J missed a couple games. So they have not played. They're still winning games, which I think speaks to the overall depth of the team and the franchise. But they've yet to really pull it all together. Morant week to week with an AC joint. So he was bedazzled on the sidelines the other night on their road win. But he's inactive. But yeah, Edey's currently your favorite to win Rookie of the Year. He's back tonight. Brandon Clark looks like he'll go. Should take care of business out in Sacktown, but you never know.
You'd like to think that's just in terms of keeping their momentum up against a sub 500 team that again just fired their coach. You'd like to think that they could take care of business out at Sacramento. SEC women's basketball action continues this weekend after a couple of big wins for Tennessee and for Vanderbilt last night. As we mentioned in the rundown, Tennessee goes out to Texas A&M and wins by 13. Vanderbilt hammers Georgia down at Memorial Gym. Got a 36-point performance from someone. Hang on just a second because I'm losing.
Her first name is Michaela Blakes is who it was.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know how this team isn't ranked. They're 14-1 and they're not in the top 25, but I think if they continue playing the way they have, eventually you got to rank them, and they've got number 16 Kentucky coming in Sunday. So another opportunity for Vanderbilt to maybe impress some voters there.
Real quick, that Tennessee Oklahoma game is going to be a fun one, I think, because obviously we talked a lot about Tennessee, but Oklahoma, they gave it their best shot last night against Texas. Heard you and David breaking that one down yesterday, falling by 7. Oklahoma doesn't want to see too many losses get strung together. So that'll be a prime showdown Sunday.
Yeah, and that one was in Norman as well, I do
Yeah.
believe. So yeah, that was a tough loss for Oklahoma to take to number 5 Texas, and so they've got another top 25 matchup on Sunday when they go over to Knoxville, taking on the still undefeated Lady Vols under Kim Caldwell. So
hey, real quick, it's tough too. Talk about tough luck here. I know not much pity for the Michigan fans of the world, but our ladies. How about this to open up your conference, your Big Ten schedule? You had to go to USC and UCLA. Gave USC a pretty good game, but they got walloped by UCLA the other night. So not a good start for my gals here who've already lost to South Carolina at the start of the year as well.
well, they're losing to some good folks, but they are losing. So yeah, that's a tough go there.
So that's a vaunted SEC, or excuse me, a Big Ten women's road swing there, going to UCLA and USC back to back.
Hey, at least it was warm though, right?
I suppose so. You're onto something there.
Certainly not the case here. As we wrap up the show, Wade, any thoughts?
I'm glad you mentioned that. I meant to mention this with Ben. I teased it, but we didn't sneak it in. But Tony Pollard, interesting situation, folks. He's 83 yards shy of that elusive 1,100-yard rushing incentive. Mo, what could you do with $250,000 extra dollars? Because that's what Tony stands to gain if he gets 83 Sunday.
83. I believe Mr. Pollard will find something to do with a $250,000. So yeah, let's hope he gets that. Let's hope Calvin Ridley gets the 59 he needs for 1,000 yards. I don't know if there's any incentives there or not, but given the season that the Titans have had, particularly on offense, for Ridley to come out with 1,000 receiving yards, that'd be a solid campaign for him, I think.
Absolutely. Pollard also sitting there at 5 touchdowns. If he gets 7, he gets an extra 200,000. So picture this: if he gets 85 yards and 2 touchdowns, man, $500,000 right there, practically. You could do some
Christmas
real
all over again, huh?
Ain't no doubt, man. So that will be interesting. There's some other ones too. Arden Key's got some incentives. He needs like a sack and a half, I think, this weekend. Some other big ones across the league. Baker Mayfield, who's going to throw for like approximately 7,000 yards, but everybody else is thrown for that many yards, so he's kind of getting slept on a little bit. He stands to be a big gain. And then Mike Evans, I think he needs like, 80-something yards, 78 yards this weekend. He'll go over 1,000 yet again for an 11th straight season, which for those doing the math at home, that's every season he's been in the NFL if he can pull that off this weekend.
That's 11 straight years with 1,000 yards. It's kind of unfortunate that he's done it in Tampa Bay because it feels like that's something that more people need to know about. And if he weren't in Tampa Bay, you feel like they would. But that's really solid. 11 straight 1,000-yard seasons to open your career.
You're talking first ballot Hall of Famer. I forget the exact stat, but him and Jerry Rice are basically where is this here? Yeah, he would tie Jerry Rice for the most consecutive 1,000-yard seasons if he gets 85 this weekend. And he also stands to gain a $3 million escalator. Sounds nice. I don't really know necessarily what the hell that means, but a $3 million escalator on his 2025 base salary if he can pull that off. Obviously, as we mentioned, they have to play. They have to win that game this weekend. So Evans, I'm not saying they're going to force feed him, but him and Baker could produce some magic this weekend.
Well, I would say that your chances of winning are going to increase if you get Mike Evans the ball like that. So here's my question. 11 1,000-yard seasons for a receiver in Tampa Bay. How many quarterbacks is that?
Oh, that's going to be a great trivia. We'll come back to that Monday. Speaking of which, this is the ultimate one for your Falcons fandom. The Saints, they don't lose on purpose to keep the Falcons out of the playoffs this weekend, right? In the Petty Wars. Saw that floating around on the web this week.
I don't know that they do, but stranger things have happened as well. Yeah. Hey, check back with us on Monday, and we'll see if that pans out. We'll see what else happens over the weekend. We will be here at 2 o'clock on Main Street Sports Today, presented by the Tennessee Orthopedic Alliance of Columbia. Thank you for joining us. Y'all have a great weekend. We'll see you.